What's up everyone, Alan Morrow here and welcome to today's video. Today's video is a combination of 10 of the last trance production tips I think will really help you with your productions. 10 tips that I use a lot in my own, tracks that is. I did a video like this not that long ago of 10 other trance production tips, so I'll leave a description in the link below if you want to watch that after you've watched this. Some of you may have already seen some of these, some of you may have not. But even if you have, I think it's always good as producers to sort of recap over these things to really kind of ingrain it inside your brain. So I hope you enjoy the next 10 tips. If you haven't yet done so and you'd like to see more stuff like this in the future, then be sure to hit that subscribe and notification bell. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can do that over at alanmorrowstudios.com, where there is plenty of start to finish courses, templates, sound banks, MIDI packs, and everything else you can think of to help you with your productions. There is also a trance production community as well, which you can join for free on the website. I'll leave a link in the description below for that as well. And also don't forget to join the Facebook group page, where there's plenty of other trance producers as well wanting to learn extra stuff about improving their productions, and a nice little community going there as well. So I'll also leave a link in the description for that. So let's get into the tips. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Okay, so what I've got here is just a melody. I'll just give a little quick play for you, just with, again, this is just slapped together here just to kind of show you the process. It's not fully mixed or anything like that. So I've put in together a melody there, and I've put a sub pad in, and just a quick impact hit there, reverb kick. So this melody just comes from my Silent One plucks bank, the volume 1, for any of you that are interested. So we've got a pluck here. Right, it's got some reverb on it. I'm going to turn the reverb off. Because what I'm going to show you here is, for any of you that may have had their plugin Valhalla Shimmer, what you can do is you can actually pitch the reverb up, so that when the lead is playing or whatever, you put Valhalla Shimmer on there, you can pitch it up, and it's 12 semitones or whatever you kind of want, which is a really nice technique for trance, especially when you want to sort of add a bit more high-end sort of brightness to your leads or whatever. So a way that you can do that without actually having to grab that plugin or any other plugins that do that is, we've got this lead here. I'm just going to duplicate the channel. So we've now got two versions of basically this main one here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this to a bus. So let's just say, I don't know, bus 10. And I'm going to put a reverb on there. Let's just use Arts Acoustic for now. So I've sent this to a bus. So the second channel is now sent to a bus. Now send all of that to that. And I'm going to turn off any dry. Right. So what we've got now in this second channel is the same as the first, but it's now sent to a bus with reverb on it. Turn the wetness up a bit here. Probably best to turn the wet right up on this because it's a bus channel. So what we can see here, we've now got the second channel with the reverb on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the reverb, sorry, not the reverb, I'm going to turn the original sound source off, so there's going to be no output. So all we're going to hear from this second channel now is going to be the reverb from it. So essentially, if I were to play the first one and the second one, it's just as the same really as sending the first one to a bus with reverb on it. Now what I can do with this second channel is I can come in, I can grab all of this MIDI, and I can drag it up an octave. So now I have the reverb sat an octave above from the original main channel here. And if I wanted to, I could come in and just go even higher if I wanted. Oop, collect all. And then I can come in and start to really, mix these together. Let's play this together. I can start to really sort of blend them, mix them exactly how I want. It's probably a bit too high up there, but again, depends on your track and what you're trying to go in for. So now the other thing is with this is I've not only just got the pitch control here when I do this, I can then also go into sort of silence and then really kind of shape and change what goes into that reverb, and really sort of control it, you know. So I can open up or close the filter if I wanted to. So it's still an octave above, but I'm closing the filter slightly. You could completely change the whole sound if you wanted to and have the reverb coming off it. But for now, we're going to keep the same sound and just have it an octave above. You can play around with the release and attack times as well on there, because as I say, the reverb is basically feeding off this. We could also go in and on the actual reverb itself, now that it's sat slightly above, we could use something like a tremolo, for example, and pan it slowly left and right, just to give it a bit more movement, the reverb on top of the original sound. So we now have this reverb. Having a little bit more movement. You know, you can do other things to this reverb as well if you want, obviously as long as you're not causing issues to the mix, but you can get a lot of control over that reverb that's now on top of that lead or whatever sound you're kind of using. So I thought I'd give you, just show you that, guys, anyway, and see if any of you maybe do use it already. If you do something like this, if you do, let me know in the comment section below. But as I say, it's just that extra bit of control over your reverb there, and you can blend it in. You know, you can really shape it to the original lead if you want, but it's just a different way to do it. Okay, so what I've got here is a kick and bass. This is actually a kick and bass that I created within a tutorial. So if you are wanting to check out how this is created, you can do that by following the either link below or looking at the tutorial on the screen there. That's the one on the website. But I'll let you have a little listen to this first, so you can see what we're playing with. The reason why I've got this kick and bass on the screen is so that the technique that I'm about to use has got some sort of context behind it and show you kind of how it works in a track. So let's just play this first. Okay, so kick and bass there. Now, what I've got here is I've got a pluck. It's a very simple one-note pluck on the F. The F is, the reason why I've chosen the F is because I'm using the root note of my bass as an F. You can use other notes if you want, but I'm just going to use this F here. So what I've got is a simple pluck. Very simple pluck there. That's actually clipping a little bit, so I'm just going to bring it down. Just give ourselves a bit more headroom. So one-note pluck there. Now what I've got is I've got a delay on there. Now, the purpose of this delay, don't have to use this delay, you can use any delay you want. I've turned the delay off the original synth sound, and you'll see why in a second. But the purpose of this delay is to add some groove after that initial hit. So if I play this, just creating some sort of nice hits there after it. And as I say, you don't need to use this delay, any delay you want. You just want the delay to continue on for quite a while afterwards, and you'll see why in a minute. And then what I've got is another delay after it. So I've introduced another delay to create a little bit more sort of movement and groove through that pluck hit. Now, you want to make sure when you're doing this that you're not causing any phasing issues like that. So have a play around and see what kind of works for your track. So now I've got this kind of nice little groove after that pluck. So what I can do from here is I can now bounce this down, and I now have this pluck sound here. So if I just play this for you a second, so it's the same thing again. Now what you can do with this is you can pick sections of this to loop, you know, and depending on the groove that you've got and your track, you're going to want to obviously have a bit of a play around making sure that you've got some sort of nice groove from this. This is just an example here, obviously, but you obviously spend a bit more time than I have there. So you can pick a section that sounds quite nice and got a nice bit of groove and drive to it. That sounds pretty good. So I'm just going to cut this down. So another listen to make sure that's right. And as I say, you can pick different sections and see what works best. actually going to do is going to duplicate this. I'm going to try both of those two sections, I think. So the first one was this one, and then that's 4 bars, 4 beats, sorry. And then this is, so let's try both of them. So what I now have is this little sound. I'm just going to zoom in here, and I'm just going to put a little fade on there so it doesn't click or anything like that. And now I'm just going to play this. I'm going to turn the original one off. What I have now, I'll probably bring it down a little bit. It's probably going to be a bit too loud. I'll bring this down. So what I can now do is mix this in a little bit better. So I'll send it back in the mix a little bit. Take a bit of that low off. Now let's have a little listen to it with the rest of the track. Now let's add a bit of sidechain to it. Just so it grooves a little bit better with the track. Let's try the other one, see if that other pattern's better. So duplicate that again, just drag that one there, and let's have a little listen to this one as well. And you can obviously play around with how far back in the mix you want it. You could send another sound through it, for example. Let's just have a little play. I think that groove on that one's a bit better, so I'll get rid of that one. Again, I'm just showing you the technique. You'd spend more time making sure that the groove's a little bit better than this, but let's go back to it and see what else we can do here. So if I now say pick a different pluck sound, can maybe use something like this, for example. Make it a bit more prominent. Let's try changing the delay time or delay. Let's try that. Let's see what we can get from this. So again, control bounce that down in place. Let's have a little look what's going on here. See what we can do with the loop. That for some reason, I think what's happened there. 1 second, let me just do that again. Control B, turn the normalize off a sec. I was wondering why it was much louder. 1 sec. 1 second, I've got to actually start it at the start of the pluck. Let's try a different pattern. That when it was loud, it didn't sound too great. So let's just try again. Let's try something a bit different. Let's try this one. Control bounce that down. And again, let's pick a nice little part to it. So you can get some nice sort of effects going. You could change the note from an F, whatever you want to do. So let's just bring this down again in the mix. And the plucks that I've got on there are pretty dry. So once we've done this, you can then add your own delays. Sorry, not delays, reverb. So let's have a little look. Let's add a bit of reverb to it. We've got these two playing. It's probably a little bit too high up for my liking, but you get the idea. Whatever goes into it is going to come back out. So let's just pitch this down. And you can obviously have these kind of like filtering in and out with a filter or something like that. But I thought this was sort of nice to sort of add a bit of ear candy in the background. As I say, if you've got an intro pluck playing later on, you could use it to sort of introduce that in some way, shape or form. But yeah, I hope this has helped you. As I say, experiment, play around, see what sort of grooves you can get from your delays and stuff like that. And yeah, I hope this video just helped you. If you haven't yet done so and you'd like to get tips like this sent directly to your inbox, then be sure to check out the AM Studios Trance Production community. You can do that using the link also in the description, and I'll also leave a link on the screen here for you to check that out. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching. I will see you in the next video. Okay, so I'm going to play the lead sound that I created. Again, I just had a bit of a quick melody wrote to it. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the one that I use, but it kind of fit for the sort of sound that I was kind of going with. So let's have a little play through. All that is there is the one lead sound and then a sub pad underneath to kind of fill out that kind of low end whilst I was getting the ideas together. Now, before I go and open up the synth, I want you to understand that obviously the synth that I'm using is Zebra 2. So don't all just quickly jump off and go, oh, I haven't got Zebra 2. I can't use this tutorial, because there's still going to be a lot that you can kind of learn from how this is built up in terms of the oscillators and the filters and stuff like that. And yes, every synth kind of has different oscillators and filters, but there's still a lot of sort of the backbone to what I'm trying to do here, which you could then go off and do in your synth. You know, if you have Zebra 2, great. You can kind of follow along, but if not, take the ideas that I'm using and go and put it inside your synth, and you could even create a better sound. So yeah, let's go into it anyway and show you exactly how it's kind of created. Now, I'm just going to solo this for a second. I'm going to solo this, and I'm also going to, let's remove this so we've got a bit more sort of isolation there, and you can see exactly the synth. So the way that I kind of build a trance lead layer, or trance lead patch like this, is I'll start off with the idea that I kind of want to do. Now, with this, it was kind of like I want a big bandpass filter style sort of lead sound, but I'm also very aware if I was to just do that with kind of one oscillator, as it starts to sweep through the filter, as it goes to the higher parts of the filter, it's going to lose some of the low end in there, depending on the bandpass settings that you've kind of got. So what I've got here is 4 oscillators, and I'm going to go through each one of them. I'm going to show you exactly kind of how it would have been built from the ground up. So I'm going to turn all these off, right? Actually, before I do that, I want to let you hear it without the kind of effects on there. So this is with the effects. And then with the effects off. So you can kind of hear that the effects are obviously doing quite a lot to this sound. And when it comes to building a sound myself, I will always kind of start off with one oscillator, and I'll add a few little effects to it, because it's very uninspiring for me when I try to create a patch without any kind of delay or reverb on there. So what I'll do is I'll leave the filter on, the main one, so I can sweep through the filter as you start to hear it. I'll turn all the other effects off that aren't delay and aren't reverb, just so it's got that little bit of sort of delay and atmosphere to it, so it's not just playing with dry sounds. It's just a lot more inspiring for me when I come to create these sounds. So the first oscillator, as I say, was the bandpass big saw sound that I kind of wanted. So first off, what we've got here is we've got oscillator 2. It's four voices, a bit of vibrato there. Okay, so that's it on its own. Now if I turn this filter off, and what you'll kind of see here is a lot of people kind of get confused by Zebra 2, but once you start to actually get used to it, I actually find it's quite easy to sort of map, because you can physically build it yourself, build the actual elements in where you want them and have them, like, I just like the way it kind of works in building it in this way, because I can organize it. Now, it obviously didn't start off this organized as I was building it, was just getting ideas together, but you can see here I've kind of got oscillator 1, which is lower down the frequency, and then as we kind of go up the frequency, just in my brain just gives me a little bit more sort of tidiness. And then each of the oscillators go to their relative filter. So oscillator 1 goes into filter 1, oscillator 2 into filter 2, vice versa. And then the same with the envelopes. And oscillator 1 going into envelope 1, oscillator 2, envelope 2, etc., etc. So first oscillator is this saw wave, 4 voices. This has got inside Zebra 2, it's got the oscillator effects, and I've used a bit of brilliance, which kind of accentuates some of the higher harmonics, just gives it a little bit of brightness to it. And then the other thing I've done here as well is just kind of soften that saw a little bit. I find it sort of helps just softening it by just pulling these back a little bit here. Now, you obviously can't do this in every synth, but if you can, give it a try out. I did a video recently on Supersaws, which you can check out as well on the channel about why I do this. But it just kind of takes a bit of that sort of sharpness to the top end away from it. So this is going into filter 2. So this is the resonance band filter, and this is why I like to put them all into different filters, because I'm really kind of layering them up and making sure that each oscillator is doing what I want it to do inside this sound. So this is somewhat like the first one, and again it's obviously going through to this filter here, so I'm just going to leave this filter open for the moment. So we've got oscillator 2 going into filter 2, and filter 2 is the band pass one. Now, what I've got happening with the filter 2 is it's mapped to LFO2, LFO2, and this is on sort of like a sample and hold style LFO, and it's just basically getting it and just doing this a little bit, getting the filter and just kind of doing this a little bit every 8th note, just a tiny little amount, just to kind of give it that little bit of movement. Again, I wanted this to have quite a lot of movement, this lead sound, so each different one you'll start to see there's a slightly different bits of movement on each of them. So this is sent through to LFO2, and it's there sent through again, a little bit of resonance, some key filtering there, key follow there as well. So that's oscillator 2. It's going through to envelope 2, and then envelope 2 is just kind of shaped like this, bit of decay, some release for when I kind of open up the filter. So it's going to sound nice and bright when it's kind of opened up, or got some nice bit of release when it's opened up. So that's that. Then I've got oscillator 1. So oscillator 1 is essentially there to anchor the lower frequency. So if I put it on its own, now obviously there's quite a bit of high-end sort of information there. This is again just a copy of oscillator 2. Oscillator 2 was, sorry, it's not a complete copy. The saw wave is as well, but there's 2 voices in this one. And then this has still got the brilliance on there. Probably not needed because I'm filtering out quite a lot of it, and it's essentially a low frequency sound that I'm wanting it to, well, cover. So that's that. Again, this is the width on this one is monoed as well as oscillator 2. That's also monoed, because I'll explain why in a minute. I wanted something in the center and I wanted something wider, but that will be covered in a little bit as well. So oscillator 1 is this. Now the idea of this sound is it's dropped down an octave and pushed through a low pass filter this time, not a band pass. So it's there to give that low end rumble to the sound, because as I say, that band pass filter, as it's kind of sweeping up and down like this, it can kind of lose some of those low frequencies. So this kind of sits underneath it, so to stop it from sounding thin in certain areas. So that's that, and that's then going to envelope 1. This time it's just the cutoff, is going to envelope 1, and the actual shape of it is going to envelope 1, and it's also just giving it a little bit of that pluckiness. If I just did this, just to give it that little bit of pluckiness underneath and a little bit of drive underneath. So that's that. And then that's obviously going through to all the main effects, and I'll go through all the main effects at the end. So now what I've got is 2 sort of quite centered sort of sounds, and then I don't think there's anything else happening in those 2. Now the next one is oscillator 3, so let's have a little look at this. What we've got, again, same thing, saw. It's got the brilliance on it. This time it's wider, and this time it's 11 voices. So this is this one. So this is kind of like your big bright Supersaw lead layer to the patch. And this then goes through to another filter. And this one's actually opened up with it the full way. It does go through to this filter here. So when but this is kind of there so that when the filter kind of opens up, it brightens up the sound as it gets to the top of the filter range. So that's why it's kind of opened up there, really nice and bright. Oscillator 3 goes through to envelope 3, and you'll see here it's got quite a bit of release on it to open up that sound as the filter gets open, because I wanted this to be a lead sound where I'm not messing around with different sort of patches. I want it to sound nice when it's closed, and then as I open it up, it sounds nice too. So that's going through to envelope 3. And not a great deal of modulation on that one. Oscillator 4. Right, okay, so Oscillator 4 is the... This is the one that's got a lot more kind of movement to it again as well. Now, this is another... All of these are the same apart from the amount of voices that are in them. This is 4 voices again. Brilliant effects on there. This is really quite wide as well. Some vibrato. Now, this one is going through to LFO 4, the filter on this one. So whereas the other one, Oscillator 2 filter was kind of doing this with the sample and hold, this Oscillator 4 is kind of doing this because it's going through to LFO 4 every half a beat, and the cutoff's kind of going up and down. It's going up quite a bit. If I open up the filter again. So you can hear it kind of moving around there. And I'll kind of play around with these once I've got the main melody sort of sitting how I want them to. I'll sometimes sort of match the LFOs to kind of how the melody maybe kind of working. So if the melody's kind of going up, I'll see where it's going up and then maybe have it so that the filter's opening up at that time as well. Or I'll do it with automation. It all depends on the sound and the melody and everything else that's going into it. So that's going into envelope 4 again. Again, bit of decay, release time. So let's bring them all back in. And then once I've got them all in like this, I've gone in and I've gone and detuned them slightly to each other by a couple of cents. You'll see here 12.06, 0.5, 0.4 here, and this one's just down the center. So that's the main oscillators there, as I say, all going through to different filters. And if you are confused by Zebra 2, I highly suggest initiating the patch and actually build it like from the ground up, because you start to it becomes more obvious to you once you're adding them rather than looking at a patch and going, wow, where's everything kind of, coming from, where's it going to there. So that's the oscillators. They're all going through to there. Now let's have a little look at the effects section. So let's turn them all off again. So we've got the filter here, the main filter. So this is what's mapped to the mod envelope, which you've seen me playing around with it. Sorry, the mod with. So this is just done through a low pass excite filter here in LFO tool. Why do I keep going to say that? Zebra 2. You can obviously change it and mess around, but I quite like this. It gives a bit of brightness to it. That's set to that. It's got a bit of resonance to it, a little bit of drive, and again, a little bit of key follow. Now, this one also has, you'll see here, this is sent to mmap 2, the cutoff is. So this will be, depending on which key is played, the filter will either close or slightly open up again, just a little bit here, just to, again, give it that little bit of movement. So that's the filter. Next up, we have a phaser. Just again, give it that sort of phased sort of sound there, a little bit of more movement through it. Not a great deal, nothing too crazy, but it's just enough again to give that bit of movement. Now the delay, which I'm dying to turn on because I hate listening to dry sort of sounds. So again, quite a bit of delay on this. You can play around with the delay settings depending on what sort of patterns going into it and stuff like that. You don't have to have the exact same sort of settings, but I just used this for the patch that for the MIDI that I was creating it with. Then I've got some quite heavy compression. And then we have the chorus on afterwards. And then the bit that I'm also dying to put on is the reverb. So this is quite a bit of reverb to it as well, but this is it all playing together with the filter going up and down. So that is kind of how that patch is kind of created. So just a quick recap. Obviously, when we're building lead sounds and stuff, you can build them through multiple different channels and different layers, but inside that preset as well could also be oscillators that are filling out layers of that sound as well. So oscillator 1 is filling out the low end. Oscillator 2 is again that sort of more down the center, but it's got that more movement to it. Oscillator 3 is that big bright one that kind of sits on top. And then oscillator 4 again is one with more movement and stuff like that as it starts to open up. So have a bit of an idea. Well, you don't have to, but I have a bit of an idea of the type of sound that I'm wanting to build when I create a patch like this. And then it's in my head. I can sort of visualize it a little bit better. And obviously there's a lot of tweaking and stuff like that. And again, when it comes to being in the actual track itself, I will play around with, sometimes it might need a little bit more low end in that lead sound, or the brightness layer might need to kind of come up a little bit in the oscillators. So yeah, have a little play around and see what you kind of come up with. If you are looking for more tutorials or a more in-depth tutorial on layering Trance Leads, then you can check out the one that I've got on the website. So what I've got here is just an instance of Zebra, which I'm going to use to create today's saw. Now, there's many different ways that you can do this. So this is just one way that I would go about doing it. You can use your own synths, you can modulate different parameters and stuff like that. There's so many different instances of it. But what I've got here is a pad pattern, a pad progression. Just something simple for us to put the pad actually to. Now, the way that I'm going to use this is I'm going to be using seven voices. Use your words, Alan. 7 voices for this, like the original Supersaw. Now, the way to do this inside Zebra, or the way that I do it in Zebra, is you can't just go and select 7 voices. And there's actually pros to not doing it this way in here as well, which you'll see in a few minutes. So the way to do this is I'm going to go and do dual on the first one. So 2 voices on the first oscillator. Oscillator 2, I'm going to do another 2 there. Oscillator 3, another 2 voices, and then oscillator 4 is going to be 1 voice. So we've got 7 voices there, 7 saw waves to work with. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to detune all of these by around about 20, something like that. Have a play around, see what works best for your sound and the progression that you've got and whatnot, and how many notes you're playing. But with this, I'm just going to start to detune these. And I'm gonna leave that last one. Right, now, what I'm also gonna do here is I'm gonna just change the attack and release times. So it's more of a pad shape. Let me bring this right down as well. It's way too loud. Okay, so very typical, very standard stuff there. Now, where this really comes into its own is I'm going to duplicate as well so you can hear the difference that this kind of makes, is I'm going to detune these to themselves in very small increments with the fine tune. So if I've duplicated that, let's open up another version of it. So it's the same thing again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these fine tunes. I'm going to change them in very, very small increments, left or right, up or down, however you want to look at it. So let's play this through. And when I'm doing it, I'm going to use the shift because I've got to do it in very small amounts. And that's the way to sort of do it in here. So I'm just going to play this. And you'll see how much I'm doing it by here. It's very, very small amount. You obviously play around, see what works for you. But you'll start to hear how it makes a much more lush pad sound. If you go too far with it, it starts to sound a bit weird. So very, very small amounts you want to do it. And this is why it's sometimes good to have different oscillators so that you can do this with it. You know, if it was just the one or two, you don't get as much control as you're getting right now. So again, I'm going to leave that last one. Now that I've got these, what I want to show you here is now I'm just going to flip between the two so you can kind of hear the original one without this fine-tune tweaks and this one. So you can hear how they sort of sound and how that makes a difference to the sound. So here we go. This is the original one. It sounds quite, it's quite harsh, you know, so. So much smoother sort of sound there. Now, what I want to show you next before I start adding in effects and stuff like that is you can actually soften this up a little bit more. Now, if I show you oscillator 1, so we can isolate it so you can hear it a little bit better. If I just play oscillator 1, always make sure to click on this because even when you click on this, it doesn't always jump to it in Zebra. Now, what you want to be able to do here is you want to be able to slightly edit the waveform. So you need a synth that's going to allow you to do that with this for this technique. But if I just play this, it's got a little bit of sort of harsh brittleness to the top end. Now, if I just come in here, pull these in a tiny little bit, it really kind of softens that top end a little bit. If I show you the difference now, I'll flip between this one and this one. So this is, first one's the edited one. These are just the waveforms here within this. So if I flip between the two, you'll hear it. So this is the softened one. You can hear this over YouTube, but just softens that top end just a little bit. It might have gone a little bit too far with it. Have a bit of a play around, see what works best for you. This one here is a little bit sort of, I guess, more fuzzy, and this one's a little bit smoother and a bit creamier on the top. This is just one oscillator. So what you can do is you can go into some others and have a bit of a play around with them. So let's go into, say, maybe oscillator 2. Again, another saw. What I'm going to do this time is I'm going to soften it up a little bit. Now, in Serum and stuff like that, they actually already have these in the analog section, I think it is. They have these waveforms like this anyway, and you can kind of smooth these off a little bit. So again, I'll show you. So if I just go click on this, select, smooth the selected. So this is a slightly smoother sound again. So it goes from this to this. Now again, you can play around very small amounts, so just dial in how much of sort of that high end frequency stuff you want. I hope you can hear this over YouTube because it is a small amount, but these little small tweaks make a big difference. So you can do it with all 3 or all 4, whatever you want to do. I'm going to do it with just 2 for now, so I've kind of got a bit of a middle ground between all of them. Let's actually go in and do it slightly with these ones as well. So oscillator 3, go to here, just tiny small amount. And then oscillator 4, I'll do it with that one as well. So let's play them all together. Now, what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to duplicate this so you can have a little listen to how it sounds. Compare the two, A/B them. So if I go back to this again, and in this one, I'm just going to go through and I'm going to flip them all back to the different sounds. So you can have a little listen. You don't have to do this. It's a bit of a personal taste thing, I guess. But let's just flick between it. So this is the, I guess, harsher saw, and this is the more rounded sounded one. There we go. So I'll flip between these two so you can hear the difference. Again, you might like the high-endness to it. I'm going to actually add a bit more high end to this rounded one anyway. So I just wanted to show you that anyway. Hopefully you can hear it over there, over YouTube. So I'll get rid of that a second. Let's just play this again. Now what I want to do is I want to move into the effects section. So I'm going to add, I hope you can see that, yep. I'm going to add some chorus to this. So I'm going to bring this down. To kind of smooth it out again a little bit. Kind of nice. Then I'm going to add in a filter. So different type of filters here, but I'm going to add a little tiny touch of resonance. Okay, great. Cool. So now that I've got that there, what do I want to add in next? Let's add some reverb. And then what I want to do after this is I'm going to add some EQ to the end. And I'm going to add a little bit of brightness to that top end. So I'm just going to get quite a wide band like this. So that's sounding really nice. Now you could stop here, or as I said before, you can do multiple different things to this. So what I might actually do is go in and widen these a little bit. And then I'm going to get oscillator 1 and 2, and I'm going to pan them a little bit as well. Now, if you want to add other little kind of variations to this, and again, you don't have to, you can do stuff like, depending on what synth you're using, you can either do it through the M map in Zebra, or you can do it through like velocity sort of mapping. But inside here, where I've got these little fine tunes here, let me just isolate oscillator 2 a second. Where I've got this fine tune that I've altered before by minus 0.04. What I can do is either send this to an LFO, or I can have it so I go to something like this M map here, which is going to basically, each increment that I do, I'll ramp it right up so you can hear the difference. Here it's sort of tuning heavily each note I hit, and you can see along here, it's moving along as I hit each note, it'll move a lot across. Now this is way too much, and I don't want it to do this, but having these little small subtleties in the pitch across the notes, I can really sort of, again, just add a little bit of extra character to it. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to change this to say maybe 8 different increments, so it's not as much. Let me just do this. So we go to 8. I don't know why it's... Okay, there we go. So, and I'm going to do very, very small amounts. Now, it's still way too much because I've got this dialed right up here. But if I come down here again and do this, go back to where it was, and again, fine, dial it in. It's just a small amount. That fine tune's going to move around again, just small little amounts each time I hit it. And you can go in and do this with other parameters if you want. Let's just go in and add them all in together. You probably aren't going to notice it too much over YouTube because it's just a small amount, but do it to the phase, for example. And I say, if you want to do this and you haven't got Zebra, you can do it through velocity and change the velocity to that. You could play around with sort of the detune as well, you know, map the detune to it so each detune is slightly changing each time. Multiple different ways you can kind of do things with this. But yeah, this is the type of thing that I do when I'm trying to create a nice sort of saw pad within Zebra. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I've missed off. You could add stuff like vibrato and stuff like that if you wanted to. Let's have a little isolation of one of these maybe. Let's go to oscillator 1. We could add a little bit of vibrato there. Adding a little bit of movement there. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is going to pick one of my kicks from my latest sample pack, the 30 times heavy Trance Kicks. If you're looking for some kicks with some sort of real nice sort of low-end weight to them, then be sure to check them out on the website. I'll leave a link in the description below. So I'm just going to pick any one of these. Let's go with this one, for example. Import that. Okay, so I've got a kick here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this to a bus. Let me just turn this microphone a second. I'm going to send this through to a bus. Bus 2 will do. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring this up. And I'm also going to go in here. I'm going to add some sort of delay designer. Any kind of delay you want. The whole point of the delay is just to sort of give it a bit of extra movement. And then we're also going to add in some reverb. Now I'm going to go through these in a second because you can get multiple different combinations with this and really sort of get creative with it. So what I'm also then going to do is I'm going to name this Atmos Bus FX, right? And then I'm going to create this track here, right? Atmos Bus FX. So this kick is now going through to this. If I just turn this down, make sure it doesn't deafen us. So you can see, if I add a bit of a quicker delay time on there, it can be anything really, just something like that. So nice little delay time or something like that. Have a little play around with some delays. And then we've got the reverb. And again, we can play around with this. Different ones, different textures, you know. And what I'm going to do first off, before I do this, I'm just going to create some MIDI here. So I can start to export these out. So what I want to do with this kick is I want to obviously send this to this effects bus 2, and I'm going to have a bit of a play around and get some really sort of nice effects, but I don't want the full frequency range of the kick. Now you can do and obviously EQ it later on, but what I want to do is pick certain frequency ranges from this kick to get some sort of nice sort of effects coming from it. So I might just want it the click, for example. And then let's just have a play around with some of these as well. And you want to have a nice little combination. You can have as many different effects as you want in here. And I want it to have sort of a nice sort of long tail to it. So I'll go in and use something like a hall, for example, just a nice long tail on this. So that nice bit of atmosphere coming off it. And now I can just play around with these delay times and stuff and the reverb until I get some sort of nice effects. That's actually quite a nice effect so far. So to do that straight away, what I'm just going to do, and again, I'm going to have different combinations here, but I'm just going to solo this and bounce this in place. So I've now got this nice cool little effect there. I might come in and feed another one into it. This time I might pitch the kick down, for example. Let's transpose it a couple of semitones, see what happens now. So what we have now is a different sound again. Let's bounce that in place. So what I've got here As I've got two different sounds. Bring these down a bit too loud. So nice little different effects hits. Now I can play around with these as well afterwards. I can, you know, time stretch them. Just cut them down a bit. Oh, cut them down, and then I'm going to time stretch these a little bit. Now, obviously, when you time stretch them, it might start to ruin the audio a little bit. So just be careful with how much you're doing it. So let's just do a little bit, not as much as that. It's a nice little cool little effect hit, you know, for like your breakdowns and stuff like that. So what I might want to do next is come back to this kick again, and let's pick a different part of the frequency range. So instead of using the high end of it, let's now use a bit more sort of the mid range. But let's also now go in and change the delays or something. Let's just go and completely use a completely different delay. Let's go and use something like let's use no, sorry, not delay designer. That's the same one. Echo. Maybe let's do it a bit faster. And then we can come in and maybe change this again. Let's find a different part of this kick. Let's try that, for example. Right, let's bounce that in place. So now we've got another sample. Again, we can have a little play around with this if we want. We could reverse these. Let's close these off. Let's reverse this, for example. Let's bring it down a little bit. And you could start to... Let's maybe cut a little bit more off them, so off the low end of this, so it sounds a little bit more cohesive. So you get these nice little cool different effects going on. Move this out of the way, sorry. Now I'm obviously just slapping them in place there. You'd spend some more time to actually fit them in your project. But let's maybe try a different kick. Or we could have actually different combinations of different kicks like this, playing with different clicks and stuff like that. Only this time, let's again add a bit more of the high end in there, and let's go a little bit sort of you might want to get a nice little groove going. So we try there. We could come in and pitch these down, for example. Pitch that one down, pitch that one up down a little bit more. Let's go in and let's have a little look at the reverb. Let's play around with this. Let's try something different this time. Let's go, I don't know, moving spaces. So something like that might be cool. Let's actually get rid of those other kicks for now, because it's... You could use something like this. Actually, let's bounce it in place first. So let's go Control B, bounce that in place. So we've got this nice now longer sort of texture. Sorry, bring that down, and we can start to... Could use it as a bit of a sweep. And then once we've got these effects in here, we could also then add in delays and reverbs and stuff like that to then give this a bit more sort of depth if we wanted to. So go in and just warped effects. I don't know, textures. Let's go here. And then you've got these sort of nice, cool little atmosphere effects from your kick. So yeah, I hope this video has helped you. As I say, you can get really creative with this, play around. The reason why it's good to sort of have this bus set up is you can just start filtering what goes into it. Sorry, mixing out what goes into it, changing them up into different sort of things. It could be a little percussion hit or anything like that, and you can start to create these nice effects for your tracks. It could be a synth hit, for example, that you put in there, and you might want to create a bit of atmosphere from that. But yeah, I hope this video has helped you and opened up some new possibilities for you in the studio. If you haven't yet done so, then be sure to check out the AM Studios Trance Production community. I will leave a link in the description below and on the screen for you to check that out, where you get exclusive tips and tricks like this sent directly to your inbox. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you have taken something from this video, be sure to hit that like button, and I will see you in the next one. So what I've got here today is a copy of, well, an instance of Spire here, just playing an acid that I've been working on, and it's a nice acid sound. But it can sound a little bit static. So to give this a little bit of movement, what we can do is we can move over to the LFO here. There's 4 of them inside Spire. So what I'm going to use here, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to map one of the parameters to the LFO. But when it comes to acids, I like to create a bit of sort of randomness when it comes to the parameters actually changing at times. So where you've got your usual sort of sine wave LFOs like this here, what you can do, I'm just going to actually map something to it first so you can hear. I'm going to do to filter cutoff 1. So I'm just going to map this cutoff here to this LFO, and you'll hear this now. Let's sync it to a beat. Slow it down so that you can hear it more. So the cutoff's kind of like doing this. But sometimes what you want to do, or what I like to do here, is create some more randomness to the actual sound over a kind of a slower period of time. So what I will do with something like this, and again, you can map this to anything, but we'll start off with the cutoff, is instead of using the normal shapes here, which you can kind of change from, you know, sine wave to pulses and stuff like that, what I like to do here is go down to these here and these waveforms, and you've got much more sort of random sort of shapes here. So what you can see here, you know, you've got these different shapes, and you can kind of morph between this here and have a little bit more randomness to it. Now, what I also like to do with this, to try and create a little bit more of a random sound rather than it being stuck to a beat each time, it's nice to sometimes turn the sync off and have it free running. So over a period of time, it's kind of just doing really sort of random sort of changes to this parameter. And you can obviously change the amount here. So this is it without it on. Now if I start to bring this up, you'll start to hear it's changing over time. And you can obviously change the speed. Now for this sort of sound with acid, for example, when it's in a track and I'm wanting to create that movement over time, I'll generally pick quite a slow rate. So I'll have something like this. Cutoff's a very sort of standard one, but you can do other things. So you can come in and add, I don't know, any parameter you really want, but rather than using the same rate again, I'm going to go into another LFO, and this acid's already got one here using the low cutoff rate for the lost my words here, for the distortion here. So this low cutoff, it's mapping over here. So you'll see it's actually got this here doing this. But let's change it for something else. We might want to change it for something like the oscillator one, panning, for example. So again, let's pick a totally different random sound. Let's morph it to see, slow it right down probably won't notice with this one as much, but, and then let's just change it to the pan. See, and you can just play around with this. Let's find one that's not as erratic. Let's pick something a little bit softer. Oh. We can obviously change the rate, so it's kind of like the filter cutoff's kind of doing this, and then the panning's kind of doing a slightly different speed, so you're constantly getting this nice movement. And then we could go to something else like the LFO 3. And as I say, you can do it with the same rate if you really want, but I really like getting that movement out of the different rates and different shapes and stuff. So let's have a little look as well what we could do here. We could do, let's go and maybe change the distortion amount. So where are we? Dry wet, for example. Let's go in and try something completely different. Change the shape to however you like. Speed it, slow it down a bit. You can change how much you want it to do it by. So it starts to give your acid a lot more sort of like movement to it. And again, you could do, let's have a little look what else we could kind of do with this. Let's have a little look. We could change the wet amount here on the oscillator 1. So if we go to oscillator 1 here, and we'll just go to wet mix, and let's do this over again a slow rate. Again, let's just maybe use this very simple sort of shape this time. So obviously you're going to have to play around with your track, make sure it kind of works within your track as well. You might find that the free rate on some of them isn't quite working, and you might want it to be a bit more synced to tempo, but have a little play around and sort of see what works with your track. Get experimental with it, you know. And as I say, you could do delay times with this, you could do reverb amounts and stuff like that, so you kind of got little things going up and down. As I say, just have a little play around with it. The reason why I wanted to show you this video is just kind of changing the LFO shape to these more random sort of sounds, to give you that sort of just a bit more randomness, really. Okay, so should you be putting reverb on your basses? Now, I'm a big fan of doing it because I feel like you can get a lot of sort of depth to your bass lines by adding them, but you just have to be careful, obviously, with what you're doing. Now, you only have to look at techno, for example, to see that a lot of the low end in techno is built from reverb. So what we want to do here is we're going to be looking at a bass line that I've got inside my, it's just using the sample that I had recently of the heavy Trance Kick pack. If you want to check that out, you can do that on the website also. So I've just got one of the kicks and the bass lines from that preview here to show you why adding reverb to your bass can add really interesting sort of tones to it, and how you can sort of, if you're not doing it, you can almost be restricting yourself to a world of sort of possibilities with your bass lines. You can almost see it as a bit of a sort of a layer to the bass if you want. So let me play you the bass line. Here's the kick and bass, sorry. Right, so quite a hard slamming kick and bass. Now, this is the bass line on its own. And I'm going to turn the reverb off it so you can hear it without the reverb. So it's okay, but with that kick in a stripped back sort of style track like this, it's kind of lacking that kind of atmosphere to the kick and bass. If you listen again without the reverb on. Now it sounds okay, obviously, but if we add the reverb in, it just gives it that extra bit of depth to it. And that's that nice bit of sort of atmosphere to it. Now, before I go into this, obviously there is time and place for reverb on your bass. And if you're adding it in the low mids and it's getting really muddy, you obviously want to be careful with that sort of issue in your mix. So I'm not saying add it in all the time and do this, but you can, if you do it properly, get really nice creative effects from it. So what you'll see I've got here is just a convolution reverb, just a preset within this Space Designer in Logic. Now you can use any reverb you want, or the hybrid in Ableton, whatever DAW you're using, but I've just used a preset in here. But what I have done is I've gone into the EQ on the reverb and I've actually cut out a lot of the low end. So the reverb is just feeding off more of the high end part of the bass. So if I just play the bass on its own again without the reverb. And I've also got some pre-delay there as well, so you can kind of get a nice sort of tones and textures to it, little bits of groove and stuff like that. Now, the other thing I've done here as well is you'll notice I've done it before the sidechain. So I've got the sidechain here, and I've done the reverb before it. So that's helped sort of keeping it nice and tight with the mix as well. So as I say, you could have a play around. You can get some really cool effects. I'm just going to duplicate this one. I'm just going to go through and have a little listen to some other ones, and so you can sort of see the sort of different tones and textures that you can add to the bass line. Now again, I would be coming in here and I'd be scooping some of this out so that it's not causing any sort of muddiness in the mix. And you can obviously play around with the lengths and stuff like that, make them shorter. So see how the pre-delay gives it that bit of extra groove as well. And again, let's just go in and maybe scoop some of this out just again. And you can sort of give it a bit more atmosphere by boosting her at the top here. Have a little play around with all different ones. So the possibilities are really endless. Let's just try a couple more just to have a little listen, see what sort of cool effects we can get. And if you got it works really well in sort of like stripped back tracks like this, like hard hitting tech trance and stuff, because if you haven't got many elements in there, it really helps fill out that sort of the areas above it. If you've just got, say, a simple percussion loop or something like that, we have a bit more room to sort of go a bit harder with these reverbs and stuff. So let's have a little listen to some others. So you get some really cool effects. Could almost be seen as a bit of another layer to your bass. So I hope this helped you. I hope it's opened up a little bit more sort of possibilities to what you can kind of do with your bass lines. As I said before, you've got to be careful that it's not causing issues in your mix. Not suggesting you do that and just drench your bass lines in heaps of reverb, because it can cause issues, but you can also get some nice creative results from it. What's up everyone, Alan Morrow here and welcome to this video. Today I want to show you perhaps a different way to maybe use your audio effect samples and stuff like that. Some of you might already do it like this, but 99% of the people that I teach definitely don't. They do the whole drag and drop with the effects, which is totally fine, but I think a new way to sometimes do things may help you with your workflow. So if you are interested in videos like this or any other videos to help you with your trance productions, then be sure to hit that subscribe, like and notification bell so that you don't miss any of the videos. And if you want more in-depth tutorials and tips, be sure to head over to alanmorrowstudios.com, where there's plenty of trance production courses, templates, MIDI, sample packs, and everything else to help you with your trance productions. So let's get into the video. Right, okay, so what I've got here is Logic Sampler. You can use your own sampler, which whatever DAW you're in. But what I've done is loaded a load of effects in there. So you probably already do this with stuff like kicks and claps and stuff like that, where we will load a load of samples in to kind of audition them against the track whilst we're working with. And it's quite a quick process. You know, you can flip between the different kicks or the claps or whatever hi-hats you want to do. But I don't ever really see it done with the likes of sort of effects and sweeps and stuff like that. So what I've got here is I've just got a load of effects loaded in there. Now, it's set up in such a way that the one shot in Logic is not turned on. If one shot was on each of the sample, I'd hit it, very short, quick little hit, and it'd play the full sample. But if you have it so that the one shot isn't on, you can then come in and draw the MIDI inside here and just, you know, and you can kind of stop where you want the effect to kind of stop. So this is cool for, you know, you might be listening to your track, you've got an impact section where you want to add a crash, or I don't know, just a white noise crash or something like that, an impact or anything like that. And you can flip between them very quickly, you know, hit and play over here. This is a bit more of a riser one, but you can very quickly just listen, audition them. And then the other thing as well, you can stop and stop them as long as you want or as short as you want. You can play around with the release times on them as well. So, you know, you might want to have a longer release time for when it stops there. You can shorten it. Now, this might not work for you, and you might prefer the audio sample sort of way of doing it and dragging and dropping and cutting it up that way. But I think it's always good to try different approaches when it comes to production and see if there is other ways that might work for you and really help your workflow. As I say, just having different hits, you know, you can test them out really, really quickly. And then you might want to have one hit doing that there and then another one over here on another one, you know. And then in your next part of your transition, obviously there's nothing there right now, but you can kind of play around and see where you want it. Now, the other thing you can do with this, once you've also got it as the one shot, you can then use them as effects. Now, these are all down sweeps. You could maybe use something like that as a hi-hat. Let me take the release off a second because I've made that release a little bit longer now. Let me just bring that down. So you can, you know, use them as effects as well. It doesn't have to be a sweep. You can hold on to them for longer for different things. But I just think that's a really kind of interesting way of kind of working. Give it a go. You know, load up some of your samples that you use a lot and see if this way of doing things with the MIDI and the shortening the MIDI length is perhaps a little bit quicker for you. But yeah, I think that's about it for this video. I just wanted to show you that just in case it might help any of you. As I say, try it in your own sampler. You might just want it so that the one shot is on, so you just hit it. You know, your MIDI could be this short with the one shot on and it'll play the full MIDI even if the MIDI is this long. But yeah, I thought it was quite an interesting way of kind of, you know, playing around with your samples and stuff like that, being able to move them around rather than going over to your sample packs, finding them, dragging it across, testing to see if it works and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I hope this has helped you and I hope it does help your workflow if you do decide to go with it. What's up everyone, Alan Morrow here and welcome to today's video. I'm just about to create a pad inside Spire, so I thought I'd give you guys a little insight as to what I was going to do with it and sort of have a bit of a play around. Thought it'd be interesting for you to sit in and sort of see exactly how I'd create something like this. So it's not necessarily a tutorial, I'm going to be having a bit of a play around. Don't know exactly what type of style pad that I want to make right now, but again, bit of a session where I'm just going to sort of create a pad sound and hopefully you can learn from it. So I will jump in every now and then and sort of explain exactly what it is that I'm doing. But yeah, if you'd like to see more videos like this, be sure to hit that subscribe and notification bell for any future videos that might help you with your trance productions. And if you'd like to support the channel, then you can do that at alanmorrowstudios.com, where there's plenty of start to finish courses, tutorials, templates, sample packs, MIDI packs, and everything you can think of to help you with your trance productions. So let's get into the video. So what I've got here is an instance of Spire. And I've just got a pad, simple pad, and a sub pad playing underneath it. So I'll just let you hear this. So just a simple pad progression. Let's just make sure that these are on the. No, one sec. Overlap them just a tiny. Okay, cool. Let's leave it like that for the moment. Okay, cool. So let's get started. So with it being a trance pad, I kind of want to basically start off with a bit of a saw, and then I'm going to do a lot of kind of modulation and different things with the other oscillators and stuff, and kind of build it up from there. So let's go here. Oscillator 1 is already a saw. Let's make sure this is initiated. Yeah, cool. Right. So what I want to do here is a saw. Let's go and grab some voices. Let's go with saw 7. Let's turn this up a bit. Let's change this attack time to make it slower, more like a pad. The other thing as well, in the initiated patch of Spire, envelope 3 is always mapped to the cutoff, so I'm just going to turn that off for the moment. And let's bring up this release as well, so the pad kind of bleeds into each other a little bit nicer. These have gone out of time. One sec. Okay, cool, nice. So let's bring up the resonance a little bit, so when we filter through, sounds nice. Bring it down a little bit more. Okay, so this is kind of like my bass to the sound. And when I say bass, I don't mean sub bass or bass pattern. I mean just the main sort of sound to this, I guess. But let's get sort of messing around with this. I'll bring this out of the way. I've just noticed it. My head's in the way of the parts there. So, okay, cool. So let's have a little look what we want to kind of do with this. Right. Over a period of time, I think I want to. Let's add in another layer first. Actually, let's just isolate it for a sec. So let's see what else we've got in here. I'm gonna use maybe like a violin and bring these voices up. Maybe let's try 9. Okay, 9 voices there now. Maybe I'll morph that between that and the violin. Let's try another. Let's maybe do that. How do I want to morph it? Let's go with an LFO for this one. Let's use it. So let's go to here. Let's go to oscillator 2. I want to go wet mix, and let's have a little look. Amount. And I want it kind of to do kind of slowly, you know. So let's change the rate time. Let's do the amount. Oh, just to mention, I've got a sub pad under here, so this pad is here. I just generally put that under there just to kind of fill out that low end while I'm creating a pad. Might leave that down an octave. Let's have a little listen. Try an octave up. Okay, let's leave that like that for now. Let's go into oscillator 3. Let's see what we've got here. Let's go to saw pulse width modulation. Let's maybe add in another. Let's turn this on. Sorry. Let's add some voices. So we try 7. So let's have a little. Maybe you don't want to morph that. going to do here. Let's bring these ones in as well. Right, okay, so what I'm going to do with this one, Oscillator 3, I'm going to send this through to filter 2. I'm going to balance out the filters, and they're going to be running in parallel. So this is going to go through to filter 2, and I think with this one, if I just mute these a sec, I'm going to use a sort of a bandpass filter, I think. Turn the resonance up. And then let's modulate this cutoff here. Let's listen to it with the rest of them. Let's maybe do that, I think. I'm gonna, yeah, let's do it with, I'm just trying to think what the best way to kind of modulate this is. I want it to kind of move. Let's use another LFO. Only, okay, sorry. Back to Oscillator 2 a sec, because I've just realized I didn't change the shape of this, which I want to do is kind of just go up and down. I want to kind of, let's go back to this a sec. I don't want it to just kind of go up and down. So I'm going to use one of these, something like this, so that it's a bit more random. Let's bring this one in. Now I want to modulate this, so I'll use LFO4 for this, I think, and I'll do this one. Let's go filter cutoff 2. And we'll do this quite slow, I think, over time. I'm just going to isolate it a sec so I can hear it properly. This is going to be how much it's going to kind of do this by, so just not as much as it was. It sounded like it was going up and down too much. So I've just got this on free running with no time rate, just so that, because it's a pad, just a little bit more sort of movement to it. Well, not more movement, it just so it's not triggered to the beat or whatever. So that sounds nice. Now what I might do with LFO3 is I might map this to the resonance as well of filter 2, because although there's a good amount of LFOs, I don't want to waste them all just yet. So let's go to LFO, what am I now? LFO3 going to filter resonance 2. This is going to kind of get this resonance and kind of be doing this through this. There's a little bit more movement there. Let's bring these back in. Now, I think Oscillator 3 that's going through to this will sound better when it's a bit lower. Oscillator 3 is definitely going through to this, yeah. Input 2, sorry, filter 2. That sounds nice. Now let's map this, the mod wheel to that a second, so I can play around with it without having to do this. So I'm going to map filter 1 and filter 2 to the mod wheel. Okay, that's sounding nice. I still want to know if don't know if I want to bring this down an octave. That's oscillator 3, by the way. I've just brought down an octave, yep. Just to give it a bit of warmth underneath the pad. Just going to bring the sounded nice. Let's give it a bit of reverb. I'm going to use the plate one. I feel like the plates can give it a nice kind of bit of sheen to the pad on the top there. Let's also add a bit of chorus. That's sounding nice. Let's have a little look what else we can do. Let's maybe add in another oscillator again. Let's turn this up. Let's isolate this a second. Let's see if we can give it a little bit more character. Drop it down an octave maybe. Oh no, let's try something else. Bringing these in a sec, so I'll listen to that. Nah, don't like that. Let's try something else. Let's go maybe like a... Yeah, this is nice. Let's try. Bit of width to that. Maybe send this to filter 2. Let's go up an octave. Just bring that into a little bit of filter 1 there. Okay, cool. Let's give it a bit of texture on the top there. Let's bring all these in. A little bit too loud, that one. I'm going to bring that one down. Let's bring 3 up a bit as well. Now with oscillator 4, I'm going to modulate that with the pan a little bit just to give it a bit of movement there. So this one here, if I just isolate this. So if we go to LFO 1, let's use LFO 1. Let's just do, what was it again? It was oscillator 4. Oscillator 4, we're going to go pan. I'm going to turn it up a little bit just so it goes left and right. I'm going to do it over a longer period of time. That's nice. Let's bring these back in. filtering through the mod nice as well. So let's have a little look what else we can kind of do to this. Let's have a little think about this. Oscillators. So we've used up all the oscillators. Let's see if we can get a bit of movement somewhere else. I wonder if oscillator 1 second. With not oscillator 1, sorry, envelope 1. Let's maybe look at getting the filter cutoff to open up slowly over a period of time. So let's try that. Bring the decay time up a bit. Right, with the lead. That's nice. I just think with oscillator 4, I want to turn it down a little bit, I think. Wondering if it sounds better down an octave, I think. Just testing what I can use to sort of modulate, to sort of give it a nice sound there. I'm going to modulate these two as well, I think, just to give it that. It sounds like it's got a nice little bit of grunginess to it there. So let's go to LFO 2. I'm going to get the, so what is it? It's oscillator 4. So oscillator 4, where are we? Detune. Where are we? Detune. Oscillator 4, detune. Let's do this again on a slow rate. Let's find something that's got a bit of movement to it. Let's use maybe organ 1. Let's turn this up a sec so I can. Now with the density, I'm going to do it so it's kind of doing different things like this. So they're kind of moving separately. So let's go. Oh, I'm not going to do it, am I? Because I've only got, how many have I got left? We need more modulation. Okay. No, it's okay. I can go the other way with it, can't I? Let's try this. Let's go. Where are we? Oscillator 4. Density. Okay, cool. Let's try this. This sounds nice underneath there. I think just gives it a bit more body. don't like when I sweep up here how it sounds, this oscillator 4, when it's at this point with the modulator, the mod wheel. So I'm just going to isolate it a sec and just. Let's bring these back in again. I'm actually going to get oscillator 4, and I think I'm going to modulate this as well. I just need to find somewhere that's gonna. I've got a spare one here. Let's have a little listen to how this sounds. Where are we? So we want oscillator 4, filter input. Let's try this. Had a little bit of delay a second. Cool. I like that. I think that's going to be it, to be honest with you. Don't want to just modulate stuff for the sake of it. I think I like this as it is. Also, as well, if you wanted to, is going through the different oscillators and like create a bit of separation between the sounds, but let's listen to it without the sub pad. Okay, so this is the track. I've just built this acid sound, so I'll let you have a little listen to it first. Okay, cool. So it's not completely finished or completely mixed in yet. I'm still at the process of just sort of creating and getting that sort of sound design sort of done for it. But I want to talk you through exactly how it's kind of created and how it's kind of got that kind of movement to it and stuff. So what I started off with here is a quarter pulse. And what I've done is I've dropped it down a couple of octaves and I've got the retrigger on. It's got quite a bit of stereo width to it, as you can see here. Now, what I've done is I've then sent it through to a bandpass filter. And what I've wanted to do is I want this bandpass filter to basically sweep through the frequency ranges. So I've got the resonance up quite high here. What else we've got? I've got a bit of drive in there. Quite steep slope on the filter because I don't want too much of that low and high coming through. And then I've set the cutoff. Now, what I wanted to do is kind of give it that sort of like movement to it is I've come over to the LFO and I've set the wave here in the LFO as sample and hold. So basically what it's going to do, it's going to get the cutoff. It's going to kind of go up and down and hold in those places depending on the time signature. Now I've chose eighth notes here, and we'll have a little listen to it again just on its own. You might also notice that the volumes on these are switching up and down, and I'll talk you through that in a minute. So what we've got here is these notes. So as this hits, this cutoff is kind of going up and down and holding in different places in eighth notes. So this one will probably trigger 1.5 times. So I can change the length of these depending on how much I want it to play. How many of those movements I want it to create. Sorry, how much of that filter I want it to do that in, up and down, during that period of time. So I left it at that for the moment. So then what I've done, so that's there. The gain here is to decide how much it goes up and down. So if I do it like this, it'll barely kind of move. But if I want those real low frequencies as the filter's moving, I can bring this up and down. Not entirely decided yet exactly where I kind of want, how much of it, the highs and lows that I want. I've bumped up the resonance on the main filter as well here, so you get this more. And I've set the cutoff here. So when you do this, you have a bit of a play around with the cutoff exactly and where you kind of want it. You know, you might want it a little bit darker. But what I've done here as well to kind of make this interesting throughout each different hit, so every hit's kind of slightly different, is I've come and selected velocity here, and I've also set this to the cutoff at A and B. Now, what this allows me to do is that when this hits, basically, it's going to go up and down, right? Depending on where the center point of this cutoff is. So what you might notice is it goes up. So it's kind of going, it's changing the center point of the cutoff as it hits this note, right? So it's higher up there than it is, and it goes down again. So this is allowing me to each hit that I go through, I can go up or down with the velocity as well. So it's kind of changing this depending on where this is kind of going and moving up and down, if that makes sense. So if I want the first hit to be really low down, I can do this. Or I can bring it up. I can play around with these, you know, different lengths and different velocities and stuff. And it just gives you that each hit slightly different. Okay, so that's that. Then what I decided to do is I liked the retrig on the actual first oscillator here, but then I decided to introduce another oscillator, a copy of it, and turn the retrig off, because I thought if each hit's getting retrigged, how can I kind of make it a little bit more interesting? So what I decided to do was come into the automation, and what you'll see here is that this hit and this hit, I wanted to kind of make them to not be retrigged. So they've got a bit more of that sort of stereo width there with that. So again, just giving it that little bit of kind of movement there. Now, the way I decided to do that is by when this first one is playing, so the first two, it's going to play this oscillator here. And then when it hits this next one, the volume of this one jumps down, as you'll see here. And then the next oscillator volume jumps up. So it's kind of jumping between two of these, this first oscillator. I'll show you this automation again. So these two are playing this oscillator, and then this one is playing this oscillator with the retrig off. So these two are, and then it goes two again, playing with this one, and then the last one with this off. Now, where this can get kind of interesting and where you can kind of create sort of a lot more movement, a lot more sort of character to your acids is, although at first I just copied the oscillator and was using the quarter pulse, this oscillator at the, this hit at the last, this third hit and the sixth hit, I can now come in and change the wave of that. Now, I'm going to make it really obvious for you first so you can hear it, is I'm going to actually change it to a noise. It's not what I'm going to use, but it allows me to then now have a bit more control over that last hit. So I could change it to a pulse. Or I could change it back. I originally had it on the same thing. But I realized that I've got way more control over this now, and I can really make some different character to each third and sixth hit there. So I can also go up an octave with this one as well if I wanted. Let's play it all together. Let's try some others. So you can flip around and change it from, like, you know, the quarter pulse to the saw. You could also detune this last one as well. Let's go up an octave so it's a little bit more obvious. So we could detune it and maybe make it let's go down 2 octaves. You can change the stereo width on that. So it's really kind of interesting what you can do with this once you've kind of got something like this set up, and it just kind of creates them creates each hit to sort of be a little bit different to each other. You know, I could come in and play around with obviously the note lengths. I could also do something like this at the last one. Right, let's go really low. You can't really hear it too much there. So you can play around with it until you've got some really kind of nice grooves. I could change the first one if I wanted to as well, and then keep this one the same as it is. Sorry, not keep it. Keep this one the same, but then change this first oscillator. Just play around with different retrigs and stuff until you get a nice sort of groove. Let's try taking one of these up. Let's go back to the quarter pulse. So you can get some really kind of nice movement and just play around with it. I don't have to use it, so obviously this last note is hitting. I might do it so that these two... Oh, what have I just done? One sec. I could do it so that this one and this one, you know, you could have them playing at the same time if you wanted, but you can kind of get a bit creative with which ones are using which oscillator as it's done. And that is basically it. Obviously I'm still working on it, but I just thought I'd show you guys exactly what I was doing here and sort of the different things that you can kind of do, because, you know, we can kind of get a bit stuck in a bit of a rut of doing the same thing over and over again. So hopefully this helps. As I say, there are other sound design courses on the website. If you'd like to check them out, I'll leave a link in the description below. And there is also sound banks, for acids as well, if you don't want to make your own acids, which is totally fine as well. So yeah, check it out, guys. And if you haven't also done so, be sure to check out the AM Studios Trance Production community, where you get tips and tricks like this sent directly to your inbox, along with some other exclusive ones to you as well. So thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you in the next one.